Hello there. Today I'm going to talk to you about Van Dyking. Van Dyking is the old boatman name for canal boat art. Now we're going to have a look at painting some of this today. We're going to have a look at the rowers. Now come with me into my workshops and we'll start. Well, here we are in my workshop. As you can see, it's not very big. You don't need a lot of room to do canal boat art. Just somewhere you can keep your things and paint. Now, what about the tools that we use? Well, our base tool is a brush. Now, a brush is a beautiful thing if it's good. And if it isn't good, it's the terriblest thing you could ever hope to see. It costs a little bit of money. Now, what do you look for in a good brush? Well, a good brush is a brush that forms to a good point on the end. Holds a good point at its tip. Has no straggly hairs all over the place. Now a brush like this will cost you quite a bit of money. So when you go out there to buy one, make sure it's a good one. Now they come in all different sizes, but we'll want from about a number 2 up to about a number 10 to do all the type of painting that we're going to be doing. Now, painting do we use? Well, today we have got a multitude of different paints that we can use. We can use a whole family of synthetic paints that have been specially formulated for different uses. We can use the old traditional artist's oil paints, or we can use what I use, spirit-based paints, the type of stuff that you would paint your front door with. I like this paint because it's relatively cheap, it spreads well, it mixes well, and by golly, it brushes well when you're using it, and that's what you want. A good paint that will flow well from your brush for this type of art. Now then, what do we paint? Well, this can be answered at all. From a thimble at one end of the scale to a canal boat at the other. There's a few things around me here. This water bowl, for one thing. Mid-range, I'd call that, for normal little bits of painting. We can paint that. We can paint a little pot like that for our plants. We can paint anything that we want. Today, the thing that we're going to paint is this bowl here. I've already primed it and painted it this rather nice deep blue. Now we're going to paint this bowl with some roses on the outside. Okay. Now then, we'll want somewhere to put this bowl for painting. Now I've got this little thing here for the bowl to go on. Why do I want this? Well, I want it up at a good working height to start with. I also want the bowl to be able to turn it, so I can work on it all the way round without having to handle it. So I don't want to do any work on there, paint any roses or anything, and then go and damage them with my thumb. I can move it round and get to all of it, wherever I want it to be. Just like that. So okay, let's get in there and start painting. Well, we paint in layers. Our first layer is going to be of shadow. The shadowy recesses we find underneath the petals. This will eventually give we a feeling of depth in the flower. And for this, I've got a little bit of this. It's a dark browny mauve colour that I've already got mixed up for it. By the way, I'm not one of these people who spend a lot of money on having fancy mixing things. I use the tops of old plastic containers. They work very well. Okay, I've got a bit of this. Now, work it well into the brush and get it on. Now, what we're going to do is to put a big dollop in here. We're going to get a good round lump like that. Working it with the brush round. Don't worry if you can see the base colour through. This will add to the feeling of depth. It will give you that look there, that the whole thing is in layers. It will help extremely. Now, while we're waiting for that to dry, and we've cleaned our brush off, and I would strongly advise you, if you're painting in the house, to get odourless thinners. They're worth their price in gold. Now then, we're going to paint some leaves onto this. And for this, we'll need a green. Now, I've got a nice little light green that I've got here that happens to be just a tad too thick to use straight from the tin. So, I take a little bit of green, like so. I always tend to wipe my brushes off between things. I take some thinners and I add it to it. And I bring the green down to the consistency which I want. Now, in there, and there we've got it. That should flow lovely. Now just bring my brush, bring it in the paint, and you form a nice point on the end. Now then, on here I am going to, I just got a little loose hair there. I have to tell you all about having good brushes. I found one with a loose hair. Now then, you just take it up like that, and down, back like that, and back, and then just fill in the centre. Couldn't be easier. Okay, and on this flower I'm going to put another one on the other side. So I just take my brush, place it on, and get rid of that little hair that keeps coming back. Take it up and down, down and up. Don't worry if you can see a little bit of the base colour coming through. It will add to the depth of it later on. Now, I'm just going to neaten that edge up there. And how's that edge look? Yes, it just wants just a touch more. Like that. And there we have it. Oh, I've gone over my line. Oh, yes, there it is. There. We have got that in now. Well, we've let this work have a little bit of time to dry. Now, the thing we're going to do is we're going to do this here. I've already done it to this one. We're going to put this shadow in here, this shadow in here, then we're going to form a shadow piece round the rose. This will give depth to our item. Now, how do we do that? Well, the leaf, first of all, we just dampen our brush a little bit, take a bit of the green we've already got on our tray, put a touch of brown into it. Now this will give you a darker colour, and then all we have to do is to lay that slightly darker green in there, bring it out, feather it towards the edges, and it gives you that feel of depth. Now we just do that to the other one on the other side. Now I'm doing this backwards so the camera can see it. Up there, I think that's just about right. Feathering it in it back into there. Now there we are, that's that in. Okay, now then, we just wipe our brush off a little bit. We have still got some more shadow to put in. Now, as you can see here, there's a crescent of shadow that is the base of the rose. But we also, in the centre of a rose, we get shadow in there as well. So, I've mixed up for this a dark browny blue. Now, I'll just put a touch of thinners on the paint brush and work some of that in there. I've already mixed it. We have shadow deep down. Now, if I put a circle of shadow there, that will be the centre of the rose. Now then, we've just come back to it. It's had time to dry a little. Now what we're going to do is put the highlights into the leaves. The little leaf marks that make it a leaf. Now, I'm using the same dark browny black bluey colour that I mixed up earlier for the crescent shadow and the centre shadow. Now, make sure your hand is still when you do this, because you don't want to make a mistake. Draw the brush through and give the impression of the centre stem of the plant. Now, a few runs up, a few runs down at the bottom to give the feel of those veins that are in there. I think that just wants a little bit more thinness to it to get me a little better run on it. Now, you notice this brush is very, very small. It's an old lining brush I've got. You can tell it's been worn down to literally nothing over the years. There. A nice little line there. A bit more paint. Line there. There. One there. One there. The leaves have had time to dry off now. Now, what we've got to do is to put the petals in. Now, the petals on this one, I'm going to paint a bright red. I've mixed the red up here. I've put a little thinners with it to make it flow better. I've brushed the right size of the petals that I want. In this case, a number 7. So then, let's put those petals in. Now, I'm doing this at a slight angle so the camera can see it. So if you'll bear with me, I've got to try and reach over and put the brush in. Now, the first petal goes near the centre. You put your brush in, you pull it round, twist, take the pressure off and bring your brush off, and you've got the first petal in. The second petal just goes a little behind that, and in with the brush, twist the brush round, bring it off. The third petal on the other side, in with the brush, twist the brush round, bring it off. Just put a little bit more paint on my brush. And now we'll do the back petals. In from the centre there, bring the brush round, twist it, squeeze the paint onto the surface there, and we'll just have another little leaf petal there, just come down to there, and then on the base, just put this big petal in there to give the thing a feeling of it's got depth, and that's the bottom. Now, just here on the top of the rose, just a couple, or 3, or 4 little suggestions that there are other leaves, petals behind there. Now we'll just leave that to dry for a few minutes before we come back with a much smaller brush, like this one, and we take something to highlight all that. We want to bring that out of itself. So if we take a little bit of white damp our brush down. Get this white up there and just put it in. We want to get this in before this red has had time to congeal. We want the two to slightly mix together, so we just attach a little bit of white in there, like that, to highlight it, letting the white mix with the undercolour. And then those two will now merge slowly together, and this will give the rose more depth. Now the rose is nearly dry. There's only one last thing to do to it, and that is to put these little flaps in the centre of it to make it look like a real rose. The finished bowl.